Hi, I'm Pat from Wicklow, Willow, and welcome to this wigwam making workshop. As you can see, I have one of the rods that you would have harvested, and I have cleaned all the extra branches off of it, and it's a nice long straight rod. I have 12 of these selected, and I'm going to show you how to make a lovely little wigwam. You can use a nail bar to make holes, or you can use a screwdriver. I'm going to just show you how to set out your wigwam first. So I'm going to pick a center spot. I have made it with the nail bar so far. I'm going to shove the screwdriver with this metre long piece of string into the ground. That will act as a center spot for our wigwam. So the first thing I need to do is to find a hole for our doorway, the first post of our doorway. So I pull out the string as long as it'll go, and I'm going to make a hole with a nail bar. Alternatively, you can use a screwdriver. A good heavy screwdriver will make a small hole. I just find this much handier and quicker. So drive it down like that. Get the adults to do this, of course. We need to go down 10 or 12 inches, or sorry, 10 or 12 centimeters. I'm hitting a stone there, so I'm going to move slightly until I find a place without a stone, which might prove difficult sometimes, but we'll get there. So that's the first hole made. Now I need to decide the width of my doorway. I would suggest about 50 centimeters. Again, we're doing this by eye based on the end of the piece of string. We'll just pull it out to there, and that's where our second hole is going. So another hole is to be made, both very quickly and very simply. Again, a large screwdriver will do the job. Incline the hole slightly inwards. This is a job for Dad or Mom. And when those holes are ready, we're going to put in 2 of our rods. So these are 2 of our long, clean rods, ready to go in the ground. Number 1 goes in first, and then number 2. And these will form the part of our doorway. Now, the next step is to find a counterpart, an opposing rod behind these ones. So following the line of your screwdriver and the line of your last rod, we'll pull the string back like that, and that'll give us the next position. So we put in another hole here. Again, whatever tools are handy for making a hole. The ground is usually soft, particularly after all the rain we've had, and it should be an easy thing to do. So that one is opposite that rod there. We're going to pop a rod in there. Now, already we're building quickly. So again, we're going to put one opposite this other rod. So by judgment with your eye, just make sure you line it up across through the screwdriver, and we put another hole there so that these are all nice and square, or rectangular even. But the idea is to make a circular wigwam. So we make another hole, and we put in rod number 4. Now, our wigwam is coming along well. Next, we go to the center point between these, approximately, and again to the end of the string, and we put in another hole, hole number 5. And again, we incline slightly in towards the center of our wigwam, and 3 or 4 pokes of a big stick or a large screwdriver will make a hole deep enough. And don't worry if you hit a rock and you can't get around it or you can't get deep enough, because the opposite rod will hold it. So again, we're going to line up with that one directly opposite, using our screwdriver and our piece of string. And again, incline slightly inwards. I'm left-handed, so I work the bar on the left-hand side. And that makes the holes deep enough for 2 more rods. Now we take 2 more rods, one in there and one in here. Now at this point we have 6 rods up, and you'll see your wigwam starting to take shape if we just pull them in. Now, you see the shape it's making? And when we go to tie this later, we'll make sure the center point is over our screwdriver. Now for the moment, I'm going to put in 4 more rods, and that'll give us a nice even shape. So using our string again to measure our meter, we put it between 2 rods here, and we make a hole once again, inclining inwards. And then we'll move between these two. These two here. Again, roughly the center and to the point of the string, and inclining inwards. And they're only approximate. They don't have to be exact. Now 2 more holes to make. One here in this big wide gap again into the center and to the end of your piece of string. We'll make another hole. And then we've 1 more to do. There's a bit of a stone in that one. I'm going to leave it at that. It doesn't need to do any more. So 1 last hole here. Again to the end of the string, inclining inwards. As I said, a screwdriver or a piece of steel, rebar, anything at all like this with a hammer will help to make the hole. And then we can tie our wigwam. Now we're finished with that bar. I'm going to take 4 of these rods and pop them into these holes. They sit in quite nicely. Nice and snug. Down they go, and now our wigwam is formed. So we know our doorway is to the front here. The next thing to do is to pull in the rods and to join them. And for that I have some large cable ties. I may not need 2 quite as long, but I'm going to join them just for handiness sake. So when you're pulling your rods in, it's important that you pull them in order. So the 2 for your doorway, we pull in first. Slowly and carefully into the center, pushing out the other rods that may be in your way. They'll have their turn in a moment. And be a little tricky with rods this big. So we're looking for the 2 at the back, and we're going to bring them down to meet your rods, and to meet them here. Now we want to center these approximately over the point where we have the screwdriver with the piece of string. And then we're going to draw in our other rods, being careful to lay them 1 at a time over the top of our willow. And eventually we'll have all the rods pulled into the positions we want them in, and our dome, our wigwam, is really taking shape. And later we're going to decorate it with some lovely fancy bits and pieces. For the moment I'm going to tie it with a cable tie, and these are a particularly strong cable tie. I'll use it to pull it right together, make sure it's right over your screwdriver or thereabouts, and give the cable ties a good zip. And your wigwam shape is in place. Now we have some additional rods which we can use. There's 10 rods there, and we're going to use 2 more in our doorway. So now our wigwam is ready. The next thing is to bolster our door and to make it more defined looking. So for that we're going to use our last 2 rods. We're going to make 2 holes either side of the doorway and put in these 2 rods. So the first hole will be put in between these 2 uprights. Just make a 10 or 15 centimeter hole, and then the same on the other side, the far side of the doorway, again between the 2 upright rods, just to make a 10 or 15 centimeter hole. We take our 2 uprights and we're going to pop them in. They'll be inclined towards the doorway, as you can see. Pop them in Let them lie like that. Now we need our cable ties again. So taking some cable ties, we're going to bring these rods down to meet our frame. And we're going to pop a cable tie here to hold it in place, and a cable tie here to hold it in place. Later we'll cover those cable ties with a bit of fabric or something, just so they're not as noticeable. And just for appearance, when you're trimming off the cable ties, make sure to trim them flush with your secateurs and get right down and trim them very flush so that they're not sharp. That is how you put together your wigwam. We then trim these off, and our wigwam is ready to be decorated in our next video. It's a simple structure to put together, it's a very strong structure, and it's a very fun structure. And we look forward to showing you how to decorate it in our next video. And then you can put your totem pole in front of it, and it'll have a wonderful play space in your garden right through the summer. I hope you enjoyed this. This is Pat from Wicklow, Willow, thanking you, and you'll see Aoife in our next video. Thank you.